Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play QuackShot starring Donald Duck. In the last part we went through more or less the remaining levels, that we still haven't explored the later half of the South Pole. And it's here we get to use the green plunger we got from the Viking last part. The way it works is if there's a bird above you, namely a green one, and you shoot it up at them, it'll grasp onto them and you can hold on to it to fly. In these sections, you don't have any horizontal control. You can only move Donald up and down to avoid the birds. With that said, the birds are more dangerous in terms of contact damage than they are dropping their bombs or beehives, whatever they may have, because the bird you're latched onto moves at such a rate that they'll never actively hit you with whatever they're trying to drop. If they tried to lead their shots, that would be one thing, but they don't, so you never need to worry, period, about it. The ice physics here aren't too disruptive as I brought up last part, but you still need to keep in mind that they are there ever so slightly. With that said, Donald in this game still controls a little floatily, as I mentioned back in part 1, so you're basically playing the game with ice physics if you're holding the dash button anyway, because I don't think I mentioned this, you do need to actively hold a button to move faster. And especially the build up to the dash, there's a little bit of slipperiness there, so you're used to ice physics by this point in the game, as it is in my eyes. With that said, the South Pole's back half in general, once we get past this larger platforming section, is a bit odd in that it's sort of like the end of the Viking ship before the boss fight, where you're in that giant circular room. The item we need to grab here is technically directly below us, but we need to use the bubblegum ammo to actively access it, because like with the barrels and the blocks in all the previous stages, the bubblegum ammo can for some reason melt the blue blocks of ice. And there's a way to break all the ones right here to access the item, but what you're supposed to do is head around here in a circle. Starting from here and then moving down through those blocks that for some reason you can just clip through like that. You could use the corn ammo here just to, take out this enemy quicker, but for some reason I'm stubborn and want to just use the plunger. Probably because if I have a limited resource, unless it's like a survival horror game, I'm gonna keep as much of that as I can throughout the entire damn game. You don't want to destroy every ice block though, because sometimes you need them in order to progress. Other times they block enemies from reaching you, even though the seal enemies in this particular section can also break the blocks of ice. You need to be careful. With that said, there's still like 2 or 3 one-ups on this screen alone hidden behind blocks. So, again, it's easy to die in QuackShot in my eyes, but it's very hard to get a game over, let alone run out of continues. The only audience I see being super prone to that for this game are its intended audience, admittedly, of younger children. But even then, I'm not too sure. With that said, here we are at our goal here. In one of those 4 blocks immediately to my right is our goal for this section, the Viking Diary. This thing just got melted out of ice, so it probably isn't even legible, but it's too dark to read in here. You need to actively get back to the top for some reason to read this. What do you mean it's because it sets off an event flag? What do you mean? And here we are, full circle. Speed runs, again, just find a way to get through that block without having to go through that full cycle. There's a reason the speed run's only about 20-something minutes. Oh, hi, Pete.
Donald, if you want to save your nephews, you'd better give me that treasure map and diary.
Help, Uncle Scrooge, help! Okay, I'll do it. Give me the boys.
Ah, crap baskets.
We're sorry, Uncle Donald. Let's hurry back to our airplane and chase after Pete and take back the diary and map.
Interesting little note about the triplets. They're always shown together in one sprite. And because of that, if you look at Dewey, he actually doesn't have any proper blue on him. Anything that's supposed to be blue is either black or reuses the gray from the triplets' eyeballs. It's a fun little thing there. Either way, welcome to Pete's Lair. These last 2 levels in the game are easily the most dangerous, mostly because you don't have a chance to go to any other levels and maybe raise your health or gain extra lives if you need to. You are trapped in these, and they can have some perilous level design. With that said, you still need to make sure you use everything you've learned throughout your journey here, be it the actual tools you've gained or otherwise. Also, again, great music. Though I think one of the versions of the game, and I think it was 1.0, some of the ending levels had their music in the wrong order for some reason. I'm not exactly sure of the exacts on that, but that's definitely a thing with these games. Now, something I haven't quite gone over in regards to the manual of this game is that it does have like 2-sentence bios for each of the levels that are very minimalistic. For instance, it says Duckburg is a town full of trouble that keeps Donald zigzagging through trouble. Towering skyscrapers lead to sizzling power lines and an important discovery. The Aztec ruins in Mexico. Donald hot-foots it through floating flames and vicious Aztec warriors. How long can you crawl? How high can you jump? It's time to find out. Oh, hey, another minecart. Same thing applies here. That's what I was talking about, by the way. If you don't actively jump or hold right, you just fall. Transylvania is a creepy forest, and a cold mist gives Donald the shivers. Vampire bats, pudgy ghosts, and bowling skeletons rattle Donald's spirit. He'll receive a blood-chilling welcome from his host, the Evil Count. The Viking ghost ship ahoy, blasting cannons shiver the timbers of this spook-ridden vessel. In the eerie moonlit night, Donald finds something he desperately needs. The South Pole is what a workout, dashing across rising and falling ice flows. Breathless Donald is bombarded by snow foes. A key to his dilemma could turn up under the ice. Maharaja's palace. Sneaky snake charmers do their best to stop Donald in his tracks. A giant labyrinth could be the deep, dark end. Egypt is the pyramid is chock full of traps, pitfalls, and secret chambers. Donald's up against a dead end, unless he can solve the riddle of the Sphinx. And then here at the Ducky Gang hideout, Big Bad Pete and his cohorts are full of surprises. The explosive kind. Donald gets trapped in a boggling maze with only one way out. And we are easily in the hardest screen here. These platforms, which I swear make a sound effect right out of like Sonic 1 or 2, always have 2 platforms in either of the top or bottom directions, and then one going the other way. And you need to platform from one side to another, and there's times where the active platforms you need to jump to are off screen, or that you need to jump from one bottom portion to the top after placing a plunger, and this can be scary. Thankfully, this game doesn't do anything of the sort like if you are on the platforms when they reconverge, you just fall right through them. It'll usually put you on top on one of the 2 top bunkers, so to speak. This can be a hard section. I won't lie to you. With that said, hard for this game is still nothing too hard, so to speak, if that makes sense. It's like, yes, every game has a difficulty curve, but what the difficulty curves and difficulty is relative to other experiences drastically varies. Now, one thing you're going to want to do here, there are 2 paths you can take. You can either head to the right or the left. The left is the way you want to go. It's the super safe path. There's just some enemies that the popcorn ammo is really good for taking out. On the right, it is a single shaft down into a bottomless pit, with platforms to the left or right of it. But because of how short the room is, you can't move left or right out of the pit's way in time, unless you do a slide trick to just get out of the way. Take my advice, unless you're a speedrunner, just go the left path. It's safer. And that's how I like to play my platformers. Generally a little bit of safe with some spicy riskiness every now and then. Also, you don't even need the elevator for this section. You can just use the plunger. With that said, on the elevator going down, be careful, because it's very easy to undershoot the platform in the case you, like, leave the platform from one of the side areas and fall into a pit.
If you defeat me, I'll give you the map and the Viking diary.
Alright, so the boss against Pete, he's in a little bit of a Wily capsule, actually. He's in a crusher machine that will follow the black, thick lines in the background and try to do a crusher attack on you. It's not instant kill, I think it only does 1 or 2 damage. But he has such long invincibility frames that this fight can go on for a while. With that said, what I recommend you do from the start, after taking maybe 1 or 2 cheap pot shots at Pete, is go to the right side of the screen with the popcorn ammo, and then hit the 2 mobs that are there with it. At that point, the only active threat here is Pete. And since you can stand on top of him, platforming around here isn't too bad. Therefore, the fight at that point just becomes a war of attrition. You can't actively hit Pete if he's on the very top of the black bars, though, unless you plunger up the wall. So if you want to keep him within safe reach, just stay on the platforms around this portion of the screen. You can be generally fine. Additionally, he'll never actively attack you if he's in his stun animation, so if you want to escape, just hit him with a plunger and then walk underneath him. I don't recommend walking underneath him otherwise, because then you're going to get hit. Admittedly, because the boss fights are all checkpoints, so you don't need to worry too much if you die or take damage. But still, I recommend not in general. And after enough shots, I believe this next one's the last one, he will just eventually go down and the drawn-out fight is over. And we get the Viking diary back. And he just disappears. And at this point, we just need to look at the diary. It's the ancient Viking diary. The diary reveals that the map must be dipped in water. When this is done, the location of the real treasure will appear.
Let's try dipping it in water. Let's go to the Great Duck Treasure Island.
The final level reuses the graphics of the previous one, just more green colored. Alright, so the Great Duck Treasure Island, according to the manual, collect your courage for the final adventure. And remember, don't believe everything you see. Now, there is one reason that bio says that, and that's because of a hidden pathway later on we need to use. The big mechanic early on is these leaf platforms that fall the moment you jump on them, but I'll be real, as long as you stay to the top path and jump as soon as you land on them, if you hold right, you're more than likely going to land on the next platform anyway. So as long as you're not too overzealous and reckless, that section there's nothing too bad. What we need to do here, though, is fall onto these disintegrating platforms. What I recommend doing is just mashing the slide, because that will generally get you off the next platform in time no matter what. Because the slide does activate really quickly. Move quickly here, because these platforms are above a bottomless pit, and dying here is no good, because that means you have to start all the way at the beginning of the screen again. Now, in here, we're going to be inside the actual Duck Island Temple. And in terms of mechanics, it's nothing too different. We have the spears on the slopes. We have moving platforms. Notably, if you're playing version 1.1, there's actually some items on this particular tightrope, namely some ammo and health. The biggest threat here in my eyes is that enemy right there. They're sort of like the Iron Knuckles from Zelda 2, wherein they'll move their shield up and down to try and guard against your attacks. And if you get too close, they'll just outright stab you. But because our main attack is a stun move, you can just walk right past them as soon as you hit them. Spam firing is surprisingly effective. Now, in terms of mechanics otherwise, this place isn't too different from even the Sphinx, because we're going to have some moving platforms that we need to jump on, to jump over spike walls, or things of those likes. Be careful with the Temple Guard enemies all the same, though, because they can jump, and they almost can jump high enough to get into this section here if you're not careful. No, I'm just realizing that the flame has a skull in it, if I'm reading that sprite correctly. Huh. Now, coming up here is the part where you can easily miss something, and why you needed to keep your eyes open according to the manual. Because we need to jump on top of this because we need to head up here to progress. I believe if you head further to the left, it's another case of looping? And here we find ourselves in a bit of an odd section. We have to make blind leaps of faith, a la The Last Crusade, in order to land on these platforms. If you just do maybe a jump of 2 or 3 tiles at a time, you'll generally have enough time to react to the platform phasing in and out. And I think you can move backwards, I just never have. And now it's time for the final boss. Alright, so the final boss is also a reference to The Last Crusade, a Night Duck. You can't actively attack this duck, though, unless he's in the middle of his attack, where he throws his sword at the wall, which will cause blocks to fall from the ceiling. You're generally safe as long as you're in the center of the area beneath this little pyramid structure. But the best strategy here is to not use the plunger. I'm just doing it because it allows me to keep my distance, and I feel that's more valuable when I'm recording, as even if it takes longer, it means I'll stay alive longer, hopefully. What you want to do is get behind him after he throws it and you hit him the one time, and then use the bubblegum ammo, because it has a shorter vulnerability period. Plus, you're generally just closer to him. Because the thing is with the knight, whenever he's in hit stun, his sword is stunned too. So if you can stand behind him and just spam bubblegum ammo, his sword will get very little time to return to him, meaning this fight will be over that much more quickly. It's an easy final boss, but due to the damage you can take here, especially if you're not getting under the platforms more quickly enough after he attacks, you can still take some pretty easy damage here. With that said, I'll be real, I think the final boss of DuckTales is harder. Well, at least DuckTales 2, I think it was the harder one? I actually can't remember. It's been many years since those LPs. It's a Disney game final boss in this era. Even for games back then, these were relatively easy. And nowadays, they are more exemplified as that because games don't have to be ball-bustingly hard so commonly anymore. You'll know you'll win the fight when he just starts speaking, which I believe is after this shot? Maybe one more. I do wish this game had visible health bars for the bosses, but that's also just my Mega Man speaking. I always prefer to have that sort of thing going on. Okay, now we're done because the blocks disappear.
Finally, someone who is worthy of the treasure.
And that's Garuzia's treasure. The game is done. Daisy?
Oh my gosh, it's just a plain stone figurine of a duck princess.
Donald, it's nice to see you. Where's my present?
This is it, the great duck treasure of King Garuzia.
This is my present? Is that all? How immediately convenient. A golden jewel necklace. Thank you, Donald. I love that animation. And that's QuackShot. It's alright. I'd say out of the Disney games from the era, which were generally good if they weren't ball-bustingly hard, a la Lion King, it's standard. It's alright. It works. It functions. The music's pretty catchy, even if the Genesis twang's pretty hang-on. The only thing I can see people having problems with it nowadays is the jump controls can be a little floaty. And the game's difficulty is either not brain dead, but relatively simple when but it can spike during the boss fights if you decide not to use the right ammo types. It's alright. I would recommend it. It's on the Genesis. It was on a lot of the virtual consoles. I think it's still available on like the Genesis collection on Steam and maybe even on like PS4 or Xbox One, but I'm not entirely sure about that. You'll know just by looking at the playlist where I list all the systems that the game is available on. Former or otherwise, usually. In the case that you like, I guess, downloading the Wii Virtual Console files and then putting it onto your Wii. I'm not sure how you would even begin to do that, because that's not where I go for doing things like that. But with that, I guess I'm gonna need to end this LP off here. We're about to see the end screen, I believe. I'm not sure why they end in Egypt, of all places. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great night. Take care. And I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever that may be. See you guys then.